Morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I'm actually excited about today's webinar. I think it's going to be an exciting one. We have some amazing people on the panel today. And I want to use this opportunity to say thank you for joining us. Thank you, everyone, for taking time out of your busy schedule or your current time to join us. So today we'll be discussing COVID-19's intervention fund for agribusinesses. And from the public sector, we have Dr. Andrew Kasari, Senior Special Assistant to the President on Agriculture at the Office of the Vice President. And we have Mr. Dedeji, I'm not sure if it's in yet, Mr. Dedeji Adebisi Akim, Deputy Director of Development Finance at the CBN.
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for joining us. Good morning. And we have Dr. Stephen Olusegun Ogidon, Lead Consultant on Agricultural Value Chain and Project Management at NERSOL. And representing the private sector, we have the ladies. We have Ms. Ada Osakwe, Founder and CEO of Noli Juice and Agrole Ventures. And we have Mrs. Afi Williams, Founder and CEO of Real Foods. So please, if you have any questions, just put it in the chat on the side and we'll answer it right after this discussion. So we'll go ahead and start with Dr. Andrew Kasari. Is it with me? Dr. Andrew?
Yes, I'm with you.
Okay. So Dr. Andrew, I just wanted to talk about talk about the CBN 50 billion Naira fund, but also talk about what the government is doing to assist the SMEs during these times. So talk about what you have available.
Thank you.
Dr. Andrew, please, can you unmute yourself here?
Sorry, please. Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay. Sorry about that. I was busy.
It's okay.
Thank you, Yewande. I think what I can do quickly is not to bother much with the 50 billion because we've got someone from NISAL, whose agency, NISAL Microfinance Bank, is managing that fund. And I guess there is a gentleman from Central Bank of Nigeria also who could shed more light. What I know from my own end is that people have been logging in and applying for that fund. I've been keeping eye on the applicants too. So a few of them have told me that they are at a stage where NISAL Microfinance Bank had asked them for their guarantors, meaning that they have received their applications and is at various stages of processing. So I think I will be keen also to be filled in more concretely by the NISAL gentleman and the Central Bank gentleman. But my own understanding, limited as it may be now, is that that process is going on well. I don't know, it's good also to gain some understanding if it is going on as speedily as possible so that the SMEs or the businesses are supported. And that said, I would rather turn my attention a little bit to the broader and larger package that the government is proposing under the stimulus package for the COVID-19 pandemic during and post. This broader support for businesses was framed appropriately by the president when he indicated how best we could go about this. A, how do we protect the health system and support it? And B, how do we...
He's on mute again. Can you please unmute him? If you're the host, you can unmute him.
Oh my God. I really don't know how it gets to that, sorry. How do we support the most vulnerable? How do we protect businesses and jobs? And within this work, part one of this work on the health processes is being actively supported or driven by the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19, headed by the SGF. Then there is the Committee on the Economic Component, because then we are dealing with the health and the economic component. The economic component
Dr. Kwasari, are you there?
Yes. Yeah, but
Okay.
I think
Okay.
we have to allow this. I got on mute. I got muted twice. So.
Okay. Sorry about that.
Yeah, thank you. On the economic component, the Economic Sustainability Committee is working with the ministers as directed by Mr. President, and also has been joined by the Presidential Economic Council. Then quickly see what can we do within the next 12 months. So let me narrow down to agriculture. So the plan basically is how do we, within this pandemic, appropriately and timely, within 12 months, and taking into cognizance wet farming is on already. If we consider also the southern part of the country, above all, we may be able to achieve some success with the northern part of the country, which sets in by June, thereabout, properly. So how do we then get our people back to farm? How do we also link the farmers to market in a way that whatever is grown this time around is sold? So basically, the framing of the Economic Sustainability Committee is look at a proper supply chain financing that will address the most vulnerable of the farmers, who are the smallholder farmers, because of two broad reasons. One is that majority of our farming community is within this category, the smallholder farmers, from an acre to about 5 acres thereabout. And C, having the largest proportion of the farming community, they also are very poor. So if we want to achieve both productivity and also some livelihood improvement or economic benefit to the poor people, we should concentrate on them. So we have looked at it and we have consulted with a few of key market players, private organizations, and what they're doing in the country, particularly those that are involved in outgrower schemes, to see how do we broaden, how do we scale up what they're doing already. So based on that, we have framed and we've costed certain activities that we think will appropriately, with that discussion, fund the supply chain that will allow smallholder farmers get finance for their services and inputs, and also link their output to existing markets. And where these markets don't exist or couldn't absorb what they have, how can government also be a buyer of last resort? So a kind of guarantee the market through commodity exchange platforms that we have, as well as government direct institutional purchasing, particularly if you consider homegrown school feeding or the feeding of the NYSC or the prisons and all of that. So certain institutional procurement also could play. We could leverage this. All of this has to be that the entire value chain, the supply chain of it, in particular for primary production, and also the off-take part of it for the value addition, aggregation and value addition. So this is what we are considering. It is rather too early. I can't put a figure. I know that the Minister of Budget and National Planning has spoken yesterday or the day before and has given the indicative stimulus package to be about 2 trillion naira that is anticipated. But I think for this meeting, I will take comments and questions. May not be able to come down to the specifics of what goes to each of the agribusiness components of the value chain of farming and processing. But we could go into certain details on maybe how, we can query the thought process of government in doing this. But again, is creating a handshake with the private sector, with the development community, and everything to make sure that we are doing this, and we should do everything not to distort the farming season, particularly the wet season 2020, as much as we can. And we think we are very optimistic that for the seeds, particularly the cereals, the legumes, the oil seeds, for the seeds, we may be able to do a lot. For the tubers, I think we've lost yams already because the season for it is almost gone. So also I think we have a lot every day that each day that passes by. But I think that's where we are.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kosari. So you can't give us a time estimate. Can you give us a time estimate?
Well, I think I can give a time estimate. Considering the urgency of this, I know that yesterday the committee did a somehow final review of this plan. And I think again that maybe in the coming week or two, we should be able to be clear about this, because I have great hope that the Minister for Finance, Budget and National Planning, the State Minister, wouldn't have announced the indicative envelope milestone approaching the finish line. So I think within a week or so, we should have this package out in the public.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So we'll go to Mr. Adedeji. Mr. Adedeji Adebisi, the Deputy Director of Development Finance at CBN. Mr. Adedeji, are you with us? Good morning.
Yes, I am. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. As most of us are probably aware, the central bank has always been at the forefront to champion agricultural financing in Nigeria. This has been ongoing for several decades. It's not a new thing. The ACGSF, the Agricultural Credit Guarantee Scheme Fund of the CBN, has actually been in existence since 1978. And most of us are also aware of the good deeds that we've been able to get from the Anchor Borrowers Program, particularly with reference to beefing up rice production in Nigeria. Now, as a result of the success the central bank has had with rice concerning the Anchor Borrowers Program, the governor of the central bank, even before this crisis started, in his wisdom, had actually introduced several other focal commodities, which the central bank has channeled funding towards. And these include rice, tomato, maize, cocoa, livestock, oil palm, cassava, poultry, cotton, and fish. As a result of this, we've drastically improved funding the entire value chain production of all these commodities and crops that has been mentioned, with a view to achieving food security in Nigeria. With the advent of the COVID, however, we've had to introduce a few more crops to this list. And this includes the soya, ginger, sesame seed, groundnut, onion, and sorghum. And the way this works right now is that for anybody in agriculture, the entire value chain who is involved in this, of course, we prefer and encourage them to be in cooperatives and groups and to be concentrated in specific areas. Once that is present, we finance all the operations, source for high-yielding seeds for them, ensure we link them up with the off-takers and finance the entire process, thereby beefing up the outputs, relieving them for the burden of interest that they would have had to pay, and all the rest of that. Now, speaking specifically about COVID-19 intervention, the CBN, like the SA rightly said earlier, has actually set aside, even though the entire money set aside for COVID intervention is 3.5, but specifically for this 3.5 trillion, but specifically for this sector, we've set aside 50 billion through the national microfinance banks for people. Let me emphasize, this is not only for agriculture, but for everybody in the agribusiness value chain, as well as SMEs can access this fund. Now, the way this works is that you go on the platform of the National Microfinance Bank. There's a link, you click on it, put in your details. Once you put in the details with your BVN, there's a window for households funding. So for those people who feel their households have been affected drastically or have been disadvantaged by COVID, they can access this fund. More importantly, those in the agricultural sector also can access this fund. Like I said, there's quite a whole lot that the central bank has been doing for the agricultural sector, even before this COVID exercise. This includes the Anchor Borrowers Program that I mentioned earlier, the AADS, the Accelerated Agricultural Development Scheme, the CACS, this is a Commercial Agricultural Credit Scheme, which of course is for large-scale commercial agricultures, for which they can the Paddy Aggregation Scheme, which is for rice, and the Maize Aggregation Scheme. Of course, most people here are also aware that even before now, we had the Agribusinesses. Agribusinesses, just like the 50 billion fund we talked about, can also be accessed through the National Microfinance Bank. I'm emphasizing this because this has been in place before now and is still very much available. And anyone who wants to access this fund, irrespective of what side of the agribusiness value chain they belong, can actually access this fund. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Adedeji. Thank you. Since you're in partnership with NERSAL, we'll let Dr. Stephen Ogidon go ahead and tell us how to access these funds and what funds are available. Dr. Ogidon, are you with us?
Thank you, Wande. Thank you, Mr. Adedeji, and thank you, Dr. Andrew, for the insight you have provided. Just by way of clarification, I am not working for NISA Microfinance Bank. I'm a consultant to NISA Microfinance Bank, and I led the team that's strategy for the bank. So I'm quite aware of what our colleagues from Central Bank have said and what Dr. Andrew has said. That is by way of introduction. For the purpose of clarity, the Central Bank has done quite a lot, and is still doing a lot in funding agriculture. And most of the time when we talk, people keep on talking about the 50 billion naira. The 50 billion naira is just a minor part of what has been done, and they tend to forget other activities. But since we are to talk to the 50 billion naira, we will talk to the 50 billion naira in this conversation, and then we mention some other windows of opportunities which people tend to overlook. And those windows of opportunity, like AXME, which Mr. Adebisi has pointed out, could really fund agriculture even more than the 50 billion naira COVID fund. And then there's the Agro-Geo Cooperative Formation, which NISA PLC, not NISA Microfinance Bank now, NISA PLC is championing. So you can see under the umbrella of the central bank, quite a lot of activities are going on. And we need to put all of them in perspective to see the robust funding architecture which the Central Bank of Nigeria has put in place. Looking at the COVID fund, which everybody is talking about, it's the targeted credit facility. It's a targeted credit facility, and you notice again, as Mr. Adedeji pointed out, there are quite a number of targeted credit facilities which Central Bank is doing. We have the fashion, we have the technology, we have the agriculture, and now this one is for COVID. And it is 50 billion naira, which is a stimulus package to support household and micro, small, and medium enterprises affected by COVID. And as Mr. Adedeji pointed out, your enterprise or your family must be affected by COVID, or you must be producing to take advantage of COVID environment to benefit. And it is not only for agriculture. And the scheme is being financed from the Micro, Small, and Medium Enterprises Development Fund, which is domiciled in the Central Bank of Nigeria. What is the objective of the fund? The broad objective is to cushion the adverse effect of COVID-19 on household and MSME. And as you can see, Central Bank has done quite a lot, is doing a lot. And then again, as a way of responding to the immediate need thrown on everybody by COVID-19 crisis, the fund has been put in place. Is to support the household and MSME whose activities have been significantly disrupted by the COVID pandemic, and then to stimulate credit to MSME to expand their productive capabilities through equipment upgrade, research, as well as development. For those who are eligible for this fund, One, household with verifiable evidence of livelihood adversely impacted by COVID-19. So for you to benefit, you must be able to prove that your household has been impacted by COVID-19, or existing enterprises with verifiable evidence of business activities adversely affected as a result of COVID-19. And then it can be an enterprise with bankable plan to take advantage of opportunities arising from COVID-19. You can see farmers affected, entertainment industry is affected, hospitality industry is affected, transport industry is affected. A whole lot of sectors have been affected by the COVID environment. And don't let us deceive ourselves. The complete value chain, even the distribution for supermarket, has broken down because of the lockdown of the economy as a result of health emergency. So quite a number of people are affected. And if you can prove to NISA Microfinance Bank that you're, then you are qualified to apply. The activities that are covered under this fund now include agricultural value chain activities, as I mentioned earlier, hospitality, accommodation, food services, restaurant businesses, then the health sector, pharmaceuticals, medical supplies, those who are producing sanitizer, those who are producing face masks, those who are producing things that will really assist the people to fight the COVID pandemic. Then airline service providers. And when this fund is talking of airline service provider, there's another fund within the central bank to support the aviation industry. But the airline service provider are like those people who are producing snacks for the airline, those people who are producing other ancillary services for the airline. And because the airline has been granted, they could not provide those services. As at yesterday, the Honorable Minister pointed out that over 17 billion naira is being lost every year, every month, as a result of the lockdown and inability of the airline to fly. So you can see if the airline cannot fly, the supply chain to the airline has been broken. Those supplying them drinks, those supplying them snacks, those supplying them everything, even the cleaners for the airline, all of them have not been able to go to work. Then the manufacturing and value addition business, the trading. And in the wisdom of the central bank, there could be any other income generation activities that central bank may decide from time to time to add to it as the situation is emerging. And one thing we need to notice is that the pandemic was not planned for by anybody, and it is happening to all of us at the same time. So quite a number of issues are coming up that we did not even see at the beginning of the pandemic, and some may even still come up. And as a responsive organization, the CBN will be responding to this and be telling us, okay, this is the area to fund, this is the area to provide the cushioning effect. As Mr. Davis pointed out, the only eligible participating financial institution for the scheme is NISA Microfinance Bank. And NISA Microfinance Bank, again, is a tool for the Central Bank of Nigeria to be able to support households, to be able to support micro enterprises, support small businesses, so that they can really manage their activities within the pandemic period and beyond. The loan size is now, the loan limit. SMEs could get as much as to the maximum of 25 million according to the guideline. Households could get a maximum up to 3 million according to the guideline. And the working capital, which individual or the business could request for, will have to be not more than 25% of the average of the previous 3 years annual turnover. So we need to prove to NISA Microfinance Bank that, look, one, my business has been affected by COVID, and again, this business has been going on for the past 3 years. Then where the enterprise is not up to 3 years, 25% of the previous year's turnover will be used to measure. And this is part of the measuring criteria to make sure that as government intended, this fund is actually for the people who are affected by COVID, not just anybody. And the CBN has been generous enough to put the interest rate of this fund at 5% between now and February 2021, meaning that the first 4 years, hoping that by the grace of God, we'll have gotten out of this COVID environment by that time, the interest rate is very, very low at 5%. Even beyond that period, from 1st of March in 2021, the interest rate will now be 9%, which is still within the single obligor, which the governor of central bank has been championing for a very long time. So these are the terms of the loan, and working capital is to be for a period of 1 year and with no option of rollover, whereas the other terms loan could be for up to 3 years. Those are in brief, these are the activities that are covered within the COVID 50 billion naira fund. But as Mr. Agribusiness pointed out, we need not to lose sight of other opportunities. MSMEs fund is there, which is basically for agricultural production and agri-value chain businesses. We don't need to just jump and say, oh, because COVID money is there, 50 billion is a little money when you compare to how much central bank has set aside for MSME. Then the anchor borrower is a bigger ticket, it's a bigger money. And so if we want to fund agriculture and we want to really do business, COVID or no COVID, we need to look at all other windows that central bank has opened for us instead of everybody rushing into the COVID fund, which in practice, all of us are not actually affected by COVID. Our businesses are not affected. Individually, we may be affected. Not all of us are going to benefit from that fund because it is limited and because not all our businesses are affected. I think I will stop here now when we come back.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And one of the things I wanted to ask was, can you give us a time frame? So once you apply, how long does it take? Because these are immediate needs.
You see, CBN, the system within the CBN and the system within the NISA Microfinance Bank has been driven by technology. People don't even need to go to the bank to apply. When you apply online and all your documentation are very correct, and if your documentation is not correct, you get a response within a period of 1 week to tell you that you submit this. And when you submit, this thing is automated and the system is very fast and it's working very well. Thank you.
Thank you. So now we'll have Ada come on. Ada, are you with me?
Yes, I am. Thank you. Thanks to NABG for having us here. I think it's such an important conversation to have at this time. And specifically, I just think you've done a brilliant job in bringing the right players around the virtual table, if I should say so. This is a topic that's very close to my heart, given my passion for agriculture, agribusiness, and investments, and specifically my passion for small and emerging businesses in various sectors across the economy. I want to, first of all, commend definitely, without a doubt, the Central Bank of Nigeria, because they have set a stage in many ways to pivot and take care of this sector. You know, I remember my time in agriculture, and when back in 2012, we were pushing for NERSA. That was a time when commercial banks, their agricultural portfolio was only about 0.3% of their lending portfolio. Now, after NERSA and after the push from Central Bank, as well as the Federal Ministry of Agriculture, that portfolio increased to about 5%, representing agriculture. And that was a big jump. And for us, it showed us that it was possible. So in that regard, I think it's kudos, and the CBN continues to take that leading position in putting out all the various intervention funds they've mentioned today on this call. I think for me, as a private sector operator now, as an entrepreneur for the last 5 years, having seen the side of government as well, and now being on this side of the coin, and at a time like this, COVID-19 pandemic, I believe that, you know, we have everything that has been mentioned is very much a situation of business as usual. But we really should be operating in a business unusual scenario. And that's not what I'm seeing from, be it a CBN, from the federal government, or from NERSA. And I say this because it's beautiful. It sounds so beautiful, everything you've said. I think CBN is very thoughtful when they put their criteria out. They listen to feedback. Oh, SMEs complain, or the banks ask us for collateral. CBN will now take that feedback back. They will now put new funds out that, okay, this doesn't really need collateral, or this only needs movable assets. You know, they are trying. They are. But, like I said, it's beautiful to see. It's the doing that is our issue. It's the doing. This 50 billion naira fund, it's been announced for about 7-8 weeks now. And after the hula baloo of that funny, was it 5,000 naira we had to all pay? So you can imagine 80,000, at some point they announced that 80,000 people had applied for the funds. And everybody, 5,000 naira, they had to pay for some funny third-party business plan. So that's what, 400 million that somebody had just made just like that. Yet businesses are still sitting, households are still sitting, waiting for money. It's been a really tough time. It has. I'm a business operator and we are suffering. It's very tough. I don't know what to do with my staff. They are one step away from being the poorest of the poor. The government has done really well I guess in the announcement with regards to palliatives for the poorest of the poor, who are about 82 million people in our society, nearly half of our population, according to the numbers from MBS. But I always say that the staff members I have, they go 1 month without salary, 2 months without salary, they fall into that same bracket. So what are we doing to protect them? And it's wonderful to hear that things are in the pipeline, but where is the urgency? Dr. Kaseri, you talked about maybe in the 1 to 2 weeks time. That's not urgent. We've already lost 6 weeks of a lockdown. So that for me is the business unusual, the opportunity I felt that the government would say, let's do something. Clean slate, let's start acting quickly in the way that matters. I like what I'm hearing about what has to happen for our farmers for this rainy season, before the planting season. But honestly, we have to be so much more deliberate. I know it's difficult. I have been on that side, pushing papers, making sure everybody signs off, the civil servants moving, everybody. It is tough. But where is that leadership to say that things have to move quickly? Health efforts at the same time as the economic efforts, we may not be able to recover from what's going to happen in our society. So it has to be working in tandem. Public health, it's first and foremost a public health issue. And that's fantastic, the way things are being dealt with over there. But if we don't have the right people around the table, or if we're not listening to the right advice that is coming, your way, we have to collectively do this. Like somebody said, I think it was Dr. Gideon, we're all in this together, without a doubt. So we all have to put our heads together and work together to come out of it. It should not still be the same way of doing business. The government sets up a task force. The task force is going to talk, this, that. No, we have to move. And that really is my issue here. So I want to know, we need to be transparent. That 3,256 people who have supposedly accessed the 50 billion fund, tell us who they are, because we are asking. There's nobody I know. I haven't received it, and nobody I know. So it will be very helpful, please, very helpful for us at this time. I'm sure the CBN can provide that. Let's be transparent so that people are carried along, so that people like myself were not talking in the back burner and saying, what is the government doing, what's the government doing? But carry us along. Don't just put out the headline numbers and say this is happening, this is happening. But if it's not being felt, and we're telling you it's not being felt, something has to be looked into. So that's my initial comments here. And I know Affion will give you some more, personal experiences, because we're going through this. We're going through this, and we're not being critical here at all. Instead, we're just trying to implore you to listen. I know I've been in Abuja. They used to tell me that, what kind of water did you guys drink in Abuja? That you don't understand what's going on. You like being in your own bubble. So that's what I'm now trying to say to everybody. Don't be in the bubble. This is a different time. And let's act.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ada. Dr. Gideon, give me a minute. Let Afi talk about her experience. I know you wanted to respond, but I think it's better for Afi to talk about experience first, and then we'll go right ahead and you guys can respond to Ada and Afi. Afi, are you with me?
That's fine. Thank you.
Yes, I am. Can everybody hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Okay, go ahead. So you share some of your personal experience.
Absolutely. Good morning, everybody. And thank you again to everybody who put this together, and to the representatives from the government for, making the time. I think, like Ada has said, this is an opportunity for dialogue and to hear from the other side. As an entrepreneur who has been in the, in the agribusiness space for the last 8 years, I do think that there, the funding opportunities and some of the intervention funds and the processes behind them definitely need to be looked at and reviewed, that sort of are more realistic to what agribusinesses go through and how and when we need funding. So I'm going to take 2 examples that I've applied for that the representative mentioned around AgSMEs, number 1. So AgriBusiness was an instrument that came out with the banks, I think almost 2 years ago now, and the policy sort of changed over time to be transferred to NERSL. But in that time, my application has been pending for over 1 year. I went to training, my bank sponsored it in a private institution, and nothing happened. And now it's been over 1 year plus. I'm still sort of in the pipeline, had to do training again, and still don't know where I stand in terms of the pipeline and not even just the transparency, but the timelines and processes to getting that funding. Not only is it that there's a time limit, there's also a cumbersome application process that surrounds these applications, which mean that if you don't have access to some sort of collateral guarantor and all those things, you are excluded. Now, I don't necessarily think that that's a bad thing, but I think that in times like these, where you're trying to unlock that type of capital for entrepreneurs to not just survive, but continue to sort of, keep their workforce employed, there can be some review of those stringent rules that make it very, very difficult for entrepreneurs to access this money, and also for the money to be dispersed. So AgriBusiness is hanging for sure. Most people have not actually received that money, and we're now in a new process where, in fact, I was told that there's almost no clear understanding of when that money. So I also applied for the COVID loan, and I appreciate that, technology. Pardon? Can you hear me?
We lost you for a bit.
Oh, yes. So I was just basically wrapping up to say that the AgriBusiness loan is basically on pause. For all intents and purposes, for over 1 year, most companies have applied and are still in the pipeline with no finality on when they will get disbursement. That's very difficult for a company to plan with that kind of, to access that kind of money, especially when the money is skewed towards paying for equipment and the prices of things change, etc. I also applied for the COVID loan, and while I appreciate that it was put out very quickly, and there was a lot more reliance on technology to process the applications, that's where it's ended. I applied early April once it came out, and my last communication with NERSL was on April 3rd. And now we're on May 7th, and I've not gotten any further feedback around whether my documentation is complete, etc. So yes, the system is probably overwhelmed, but again, if things are going to be done differently, these bottlenecks need to be looked at and to be removed. I now also just want to use this opportunity to talk about how these loans are they're put together, and the skewed nature of the desire to see companies apply for equipment versus working capital. One of the representatives mentioned that this is a time where, part of the application process will be looked at, is reviewed through by your use of funds, basically. So they want to see you apply for equipment, etc. But in these times, I don't know how it correlates that with reduced demand, uncertainty, and the fact that our markets, most of us are sort of, basically ground to a halt. The reliance on us applying for equipment holds. I just don't see that working for most businesses. Most businesses need working capital right now to weather the storms. So if you are getting and prioritizing companies that are looking to increase equipment, is that not, one, not appropriate and applicable at this time? And secondly, if people are still applying for equipment, maybe it is incentivizing people to apply for the wrong things, or they're being skewed to apply for things to try get finance, but these are things that they don't actually need in their businesses. So if you put out a COVID fund that is an emergency release fund and the priority is still equipment, and working capital is limited to 25% of the application in essence, then I don't think that that's answering the problem that entrepreneurs have today. And that needs to be reviewed. And these are some of the things that I think should be looked at. This is some of the things that, while I understand the constraints that the CBN has around, just loaning money without any sort of collateral, I agree. And I don't agree that you should give people just money without some sort of collateral or some sort of guarantee of payback. Those things should be reviewed, and they should not be as stringent in this time so that businesses can have access to working capital to survive. I think there's also a huge issue of medicine after death. A lot of businesses will not weather the storm in the next 4 weeks. A lot of businesses will be forced to let go of their employees if things don't turn around in the next 4 weeks. And if you cannot offer some sort of palliative or financing that allows them to quickly access finance to continue to just stay in business in whatever form, then by the time the finance is available, there may not be any business. And I think that this is very true of all the intervention funds I see. I mean, like I said, I've been in a process for 1 year, and if I depended on that to survive or to make any difference in my company, I wouldn't exist today. Same thing with the COVID loan, which, it's been a month and I basically am nowhere near any sort of understanding of when this money will come. If businesses are meant to depend on this or meant to access it as an emergency relief fund, they will not be in business. So I think from an SME point of view, these are some things that I would like to highlight so that they can be reviewed. And I think that also, there might be an opportunity for the CBN to bring SMEs around the table when these things are being designed. I see that there's always a formulaic way these funds are put together, and it's always the same thing. It excludes the same people. It makes it difficult for the same people not to access it, and it makes it to get it. And I don't think that's inclusive for all SMEs at this point in time. So there is, I think, an opportunity for the CBN and partners like NERSL to speak to and bring SMEs around the table to understand their cash cycles, what they really need regards equipment and assets versus working capital, and how best we can demonstrate that as SMEs, we are sort of able to access these loans and pay back. Because using the traditional means of, we need a house or we need a guarantor with land and all those things excludes a lot of people. And if you're trying to save businesses at this point, I don't think that this approach will be as successful. So those are my initial comments as somebody who's currently in the thick of things and have applied to these financing opportunities being put forward by the CBN. And I am somebody who has access. I can't imagine how much more difficult it is for the average person or average small business, to actually get this funding. I think I'll stop there and open the discussion back up.
Happy. Thank you. So I wanted to say we have a lot of questions in the chat box, but what we'll do is you put your palm up if you want to ask a question when it's time to ask questions. But I'll let Dr. Gideon answer Ada, and then Dr. Agribusinesses as well. And we go ahead. Dr. Gideon, are you with us?
Yes, I'm with you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yes. And I will start with the comment by Ada. I think there is a little confusion here, and that confusion is arising from the fact that Ada is mixing the COVID fund with HACSME fund. For the HACSME funds, nobody pays anybody, nobody pays for EDI training. It is the HACSME funds that requires training. And I run a business development clinic, and I know most enterprises in Nigeria, they have capacity gap. And that is why the EDI training is the mandatory requirement for HACSME fund. In terms of transparency, I can vouch for the transparent process in the approval process and in the processing process for this loan at NISA Microfinance Bank and at the Central Bank. I'm an outsider and I'm talking as a consultant. And I know many of my clients who have attended my business development clinic and training who has got this fund. Another thing we need to clarify is that the COVID fund is not a subsidy for failure. It is an incentive to motivate people to stay in business during a very difficult period. So if a business is going to collapse tomorrow, and lay off the staff, I don't think COVID fund is what this required. And again, somebody raised this question of what is the application process? The application process is simple. Applications are submitted online directly to NISA Microfinance Bank. Applications are accompanied by the following: borrowing entities BVN is mandatory, business registration. I find it difficult to, even if I'm the approving authority, to approve a loan for a business that is not registered. Then business plan with a clear evidence of the opportunity that you want to take. Then the question of which Afi pointed out about whether the bank is giving priority to equipment. No, under the COVID intervention fund, the bank is not giving priority to equipment. It's just telling you that there are 3 windows or 3 doors with which you can access, either as a family that has been impacted by COVID, or as a business that has been impacted by COVID, or as a business that wants to capitalize on COVID opportunity. If you want to capitalize on COVID opportunity, and you need equipment to be able to say, for example, you want to produce face masks, and you need a particular machine to be able to design and do all those things. Naturally, the bank will say, okay, yes, we pay this money directly to the company that is going to supply you the equipment. So it's just a mandatory requirement. Then the question of business plan, many people talk to me on a daily basis to request for guidance on the application for this money. The first thing I ask them is, what exactly do you want to do with this money? I can put it to you that 40% of them don't even know what they want to do. And the fact is that the first law in borrowing, any money you want to borrow, you don't know what you want to use it for, you really don't need it. So the documentation must be perfect, then the requirement must be perfect, and the business opportunity must be clearly stated. It is possible if your family has been impacted by COVID, you cannot go to work, you cannot go to your farm, go to the lower level, a family that is impacted by COVID, and put your BVN. Why should somebody apply for a loan without a BVN? If you don't have a bank account in this age and time, then you are not a
Thank you very much, Dr. Gideon.
Some of us actually have met these requirements. You're speaking about people who may not meet around people who have met them. We're not talking about people who don't have business plans or don't have, BVN numbers. I mean, we've been in business for years. Most people who are trying to apply to these funds are in business. So I think we should address that and not focus on the externalities of people who may not qualify or they don't know what they want to do. We know what we want to do. We have businesses, we have business plans, and we're saying that we've not actually gotten feedback or that the funding is not suited to our needs. So I think that would help us, sort of expand the quality of dialogue that we have around what.
Thank you very much for that.
Dr. Gideon, sorry about that. Let me add to this. You mentioned something about if your COVID funds, you can access COVID fund if your business is failing. Nobody expected this pandemic, and for COVID funds, it's not something we plan. Nobody planned for it. So your business can actually fail if you're in the food sector.
What I mean is that if that COVID fund will not support the business to remain in business, the essence of this fund is to support you to remain in business so that the business will not die. It's not to organize a barrier for the business. This is what I'm pointing out. We need to see that this opportunity, I'm coming back to what Ada pointed out, that some people have made this requirement. Fine, we recognize the fact that quite a number of people might have made this requirement. There might be challenges here and there, but again, our colleagues from the central bank, we address this issue, but the fact remains that within the framework and within the environment of operation and within the time that has been set, some people have got this funding. Some people have not got this funding. For those who have not got this funding, a number of things could be done to fast track and get it done. Work has been disrupted. As I pointed out at the beginning, this thing happened to all of us at the same time. Nobody was immune. The people in the bank could not go to work. We could not go to work. The business could not go to work. Then some people again decided, okay, technology should drive this process. I'm not talking for central bank, but I know 100% of central bank staff are not going to the office. They are working remotely. So some things we have to give, and then we need to now talk to those people to make sure that, okay, let's increase the speed. Let's try as much as possible to make sure that this thing moves out faster, even at the risk of what we are trying to avoid. I'm not defending the bank because I don't work for the bank, but the fact remains that, one, this is a system that is running, and then we have some hiccups that may be addressed to be able to make it smoother and work faster. But for anybody to say that, oh, nobody has got this money, there's no transparency.
Publish the names and let them advertise and tell us who has gotten the money.
Precisely, they can advertise. They can advertise.
Yeah, I think it would be good to know those who have actually gotten it.
Okay.
Dr. Gideon, thank you very much. Dr. Kwasarek, are you with me?
Yeah, thank you very much, Kazim. Thank you, I'm with you. I think,
you can go ahead.
Yeah, I think for me, first of all, this is very, very important. And I want to thank Ada and Afi. And I want to thank the colleagues from CBN and NISA, the consultant. I think this, even if we stop here, I will say that this meeting has achieved its aim, because it has brought again out clearly this issue of particularly the unusual times we're in, the urgency, and the unconventional way that we have to all explore to find a closer linkage between whatever government is planning and the key beneficiaries, particularly the stakeholders. I think this came out very clear. And I think from the government side, before I make my comment on the specific issue I raised with the urgency, I think this is very important to hear the personal experiences and to understand that there is urgency in this. I note that seriously, and I know the issue of the stakeholder engagement, particularly during design. All of us have some bit of schooling, and we know that if you want to achieve sustainability, the first cardinal rule is, can you get the buy-in of your target beneficiary or your stakeholders? So that issue around also it's not too late to even discuss the admins or the good fund with the key beneficiaries to just have a kind of platform like this and get more insight into what exactly would work. Even if 6 weeks ago when it was announced, it was appropriate, but now things have shifted. The foundations are no more stable. So we need to just relook at it quickly. I think with innovation, we should be able to do that quickly. And I think this is key, and I would like to engage for the DD from CBN, but I will personally relate this back to my post also. That I think we have to, more than ever, look at the principle of course correcting as we implement. So we have to course correct at every point, even if it is just within 7 days since the last goalposts were set. This for me is very important. I want to thank you for that. Now, back on the issue of urgency for this, I agree with you on that, absolutely. That when I say maybe we don't want to do it, you don't feel the urgency, I am saying from broader announcement, I don't think I can comment on that because the president has to take hold of this. As I said again, that the fact that the Minister for Budget, Minister for State Budget and Planning put out a figure yesterday or the day before means that we are closer to the end of the line than we were before. But again, I would like to share also that from the institutional perspective, Federal Ministry of Agriculture, right till this morning, the works that needs to happen in the last 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, we've done a lot of consultation with representative, but not everybody, with representative stakeholders that have been doing particularly kind of grower scheme farming in this country. To gain insight into how they are running these schemes and how can government also scale it up. And we have done a lot, and a lot is being done currently. We have people out there in the field. We are validating the available manpower to make sure also targeting is critical. We have reviewed all platforms that can help us, digital platforms like NAPI and other digital platforms, cellular and core that have worked before. We're trying to find an appropriate way also for quick and easy identification, particularly of the smallholder primary producers. We have engaged with CBN. We've received over 500,000 lists, which we are working, trying to say, listen, okay, what is the status of these people today concerning any of the projects? Are they still benefiting or not? But above all for me, what is critical, what might take a little bit of time. When I say this, I'm not talking about weeks, I'm talking about days from our own end, is how do you really identify a target. Because when I review the data I receive from the private sector market players that are running outgrower scheme today on the principles of market, they have been able to link their beneficiaries, particularly the primary producers to a piece of land. So that farmer-farm mapping that allows me to get directly that this guy is producing cucumber, he needs this amount, and that one is producing soybean, he needs this amount. That type of targeting is critical for this, for speedy and also targeted disbursement of this stimulus package for the agri sector. So we are working around the clock to make sure that in the coming days, we have something that brings us closer to make sure that these resources go out. We know that it's going to still be a kind of loan with a lower interest rate loan. As CBN governor has said at the various meetings, the Minister for Finance, maybe we should think about for this particular situation, 2% kind of interest for this particular intervention on the stimulus, or even zero. But for me, I want to just say that in the coming days, that we have moved to a semi-solid ground, that we can match beneficiaries a piece of land, and we can finance their inputs quickly through verifiable means, and then they can go ahead to do their activities. We still have time to work out the offtake and whatever, linking them to market and the rest. Immediately is how do we put people back on their farms, the smallholder farmers in their millions? How do we put them back to farm now? That is the critical issue now. How do we put them back to farm? Because we are talking about people that have had experiences where someone has used the seed saved and converted it into food because he's been locked down, he couldn't save what is ongoing. So now he cannot even afford seed for a planting, even if you know. So there are lots of very, very touchy experiences of our smallholder farmers. And what I can say for a platform like this is that moving forward, Federal Ministry of Agriculture, and I will relate this, sure that we find handshake with everybody that can add value. We must take bold risks. We're not going to get it all right, but we must also be sure that the risks can be minimized. But for me, honestly, I'm not afraid of risks now. If we put our things out there and then 6 months down the line, it's only 40% success, at least we took the risk. We took the risk on behalf of our people. So I think everybody will be open to institutionally relate further. And I know how much the Honorable Minister, the Permanent Secretary, and the directors in PEFMA have been working around the clock to make sure we get this right. And I also want to thank them for their openness, particularly in the handshake. And the central bank too, in the handshake this time around, with existing platforms with evidence of a grower scheme that is working and is linking so that we can augment the anchor borrower and expand it further, but get these small and micro farmers with an acre less and above, or even less. So I think this is all I would like to say. So on the issue of urgency, there's all sense of urgency. And I told you earlier on that yesterday, the review of the stimulus and the economic sustainability plan was made following the review with the Presidential Economic Advisory Council. So there has been activities around this document, and we will remain faithful to the feedback we've gotten from the stakeholders, the private sector players, and the aggregators at every level of the market along the supply chain.
Dr. Kwasari, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, thank you very much. We are really running low on time. So I wanted Mr. Debisi from Central Bank to answer. And I see all the palms up on the question. Would ask questions. We have an opportunity to ask for questions. So Mr. Debisi, are you with me? Are you there?
Yes, I am here.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Yowande. Like the consultant from NASL said, I noticed there was a confusion between the AgSMEs fund and the COVID-19 fund. They are two separate entities. I totally feel her concern and worry about the initial delay that was perceived from earlier applications. But I want to calm her worries and encourage her, and also let her know that it was actually that concern that brought about the existence of the National Microfinance Bank as an SPV to actually disburse this particular intervention. And since it's come up, the story has been totally different. I would also like to encourage her that if it was any of the applications that came in over a year ago, that might be easier and better for her to go back to the AgSMEs, to the National Microfinance Bank platform and apply directly. Because the initial ones went through the deposit money banks and they are not handling it anymore. And I want to assure you that the turnaround time on application from the AgSMEs platform is a lot faster than you might want to imagine. Also, somebody mentioned it earlier that the application for the COVID-19 fund is almost instant. You apply today, you get a feedback today. And like it was earlier said also, the reason for the delay, the reason we've had a few weeks delay is that the NASL staff have been experiencing the lockdown just like everybody else. They've not been at work. But I want to ensure you that over the next week, you're going to get a lot more and more people to go on. The response of the bank to the crisis in the country, let me assure you, it is not business as usual. Even though we don't, central bank, I can speak for central bank. And there is a whole lot going on in the background that is not that was mentioned earlier. We actually have teams all around the country that were set up to champion the direct and focus organization of all these commodities. We have been working with all the state governments, we've been working with all the apex commodity associations in the country. And I can actually ready for the wet season farming in virtually all parts of the country. We've compiled a list of the farmers, we've done, made arrangements for the aggregation, made arrangements for the supply of seedlings, and even the off-taking of all the commodities. The central bank is very worried, as you might imagine, about ensuring that there is food security concern, that there might be food scarcity. And we have made all arrangements to ensure that we don't go through that. I don't know whether you're aware, over 40 countries since the COVID started has actually placed some kind of restriction. And I want to assure you that the only reason we have not false of the work we have been doing because we are gradually approaching a stage of not self-sufficiency, but food security, where we have more than enough to take care of ourselves. That's the situation right now. I took note of the opinion of the lady that talked about the issue of working capital. It's well taken. I actually think I agree with her. And I want to assure her that it will be taken back to my management, and I'm sure they will consider it. What else? Well, that's about it. Only for me to reassure each and every one of us that, honestly, let me put it to you as a challenge. Go back to the platform of either Agribusinesses or the COVID platform and apply.
What's that?
Sorry, Mr. Dedeji.
Yeah.
Mr. I just don't want us to lose this opportunity to give you direct feedback that one, we did have to pay 10,000 hours, one of the first people to apply for COVID, and we did have to pay whether that
for
was
COVID,
changed or
not for COVID. Not for COVID.
Secondly,
No, wait, hold on. You did not pay for COVID.
Yes, I did.
COVID
and I
is done online.
If you want me to send you the information, I'm happy to.
I can pull it up now. I can pull up the email.
I will send it to you. Secondly, I am in the second wave of training with NERSAL for AGSME. So I am back in the system, and there's no news around when the applications are going to be processed and finished. Thirdly, for people who did not know that applied for AGSMEs before and then applied for COVID, we are not allowed to have both. So your AGSMEs application is somewhat stalled if you then applied for COVID, although we were not told and nobody gave any information around that. So there is a limitation to that platform in and of itself. And I'm just saying this so that you get the feedback. And if you want me to give you more information offline, I'm more than happy to for the improvement of the system. But it is not to say that, people must just trust this platform and go on it and everything will be solved. There are limitations that some of us are experiencing, and this is a good time to bring it to the fore. So I'm happy to share anything you want offline, and perhaps bring a view of what really what we are experiencing applied. More than happy.
Hello, Dr. Adebisi. Hello, Dr. Adebisi, are you there?
Hello.
Hello, Doctor. So would this be an opportunity for you to engage with them?
Hello, yes, I'm here. Yes, I'm here.
Because we still have a couple of questions in the box.
I am here. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, it is. Okay.
Mr. Adebisi,
should I just wait for the two questions and then respond?
Yes. Okay. So we have a question from African Farmer.
I'm
Mr.
asking
Adebisi,
you whether I should wait for the final questions. Yes.
No, please go ahead and
go ahead. Then we'll respond to all the questions.
So go ahead and respond, please. Go ahead. African Farmer and Kudus, we're coming back to you.
Okay, so the last issue that was raised, as far as we are concerned in central bank, there is no demand or requirement for payment to access any of those funds. The requirement for the AGSMEs application is not even to access the fund, it's for the EDI training. And like was mentioned earlier, it's required that every person who wants to go into business should be able to get some kind of entrepreneurship training, because that was something that was really, really lacking in the system to access the money on how to manage your business. That is one. Two, the COVID fund, like I said, is almost instantly. Unfortunately, like I said, I can't really speak for the people that applied over a year ago, because most of the applications were actually channeled through the deposit money banks. Unfortunately, the central bank wasn't particularly happy because we didn't get the kind of cooperation we required of them. And that was why the Nassau Microfinance Bank came into play in the first instance. It is a special purpose vehicle that was brought up to address the shortcomings of the deposit money banks. And since then, it's been up and running, and we haven't had any such complaints or problems anymore. That, more importantly, the application is online. I'm talking about both now, the COVID application, the AGSMEs application, it's online. So there's little human intervention. You just go on the platform, input your details, you get a response almost immediately. A few days later, you get an update, and then you know whether you're qualified or not. Unfortunately, because of the lockdown I'm mindful that there's been a slight delay, but it's only over the past period of lockdown. That's over the past 3 or 4 weeks. But they're back now at work, even though not fully, but we're back at work and we're processing all the documents. So let me just assure you that hopefully by the coming week, everything will be up and running. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Mr. Adebisi. Okay, I also want that opportunity for Ada and Afi. Maybe you guys can engage offline. Ada, you can add one more question to it, but we have to get the people in the comments.
Thank you. I appreciate this. Just to quickly say, so I'm holding the email right here. Look, if you look at my screen, that's the email from National Microfinance Bank asking an applicant for the targeted COVID facility to pay 5,000. So let me just to say, because you said it was simplified credit, but after a while, that was then stopped. What I just want to say is that can that money be refunded to those 80,000 people who had to pay 5,000 before you discontinued it? So it is true, because he said it's not true. So I just want to make sure we're clear.
Mr. Adebisi, should Ada
that is just coming to my attention. Honestly, I'm not aware of this. I'm going to confirm, I'm going to verify, and
I think Ada can also forward it to you.
Let her send me the email, please.
I'll forward it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, please, let's get the other people out. African farmer, sorry, can we?
Okay, so my question goes to Dr. Kwasari. Now, so we have some farmers, mostly new entrants, who are not necessarily uneducated. Maybe they have the primary or secondary school. They are actively involved in farming. They can apply for these funds, but they constitute a majority of the people who produce. But they are also not in that level of the smallholder farmers, because most of the smallholder farmers are not educated. With a lot of them, they may not be able to apply. However, they still hold the key to supplying the AFIs and the others. How do they come in? You know, because this year now, despite COVID, we funded about 70 acres of these farmers on a river basin in Shekweteri, and it can be verified. So we sold the watermelons. They still made profit all through last week. However, their income was cut by 50%, but they still made profits. So how do there's no network on the farm? So we need to pay attention to some people who are not the uneducated, they are educated, but they are in between the SMEs that can use the internet and the ones that you say should form cooperatives. How do you address that? And many of them are around river basins across the nation, and I've worked across the nation on river basin. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please, Dr. Kwasari, before you answer that, let's take one more question from Kudus. Kudus, hello?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, sorry, there's a problem with my video from here, I don't know. This is for Dr. Andrew, who is a vet. I think I put it there. I've listened to most of the phone, and I noticed that the focus has been on plant and neglect of livestock, which is a crucial part of the agricultural food chain in Nigeria. And I want to go back to during the era of President Obasanjo, there was what was called the National Food Security Program to help make us sustainable in terms of food from the livestock perspective, so we don't have to import. Nothing has been done from that program. And one of the key things they identified was that we need vaccines in Nigeria. And I know for people who are in the livestock business, that is a crucial thing for their survival. And importation has been the method. There's only one vaccine manufacturing company in Nigeria that's owned by the government, and that's the National Veterinary Research Institute. As of last year, there was a bill for privatization there. Nothing has come out of that. And now we're dealing with COVID-19. What is the government's position? Because last week I was on a forum from the African Development Bank, championed by our former Minister of Agriculture, who is the president of the African Development Bank, Professor Additional. So I'm directing my question, Dr. Andrew, because he understands where I'm coming from. As a veterinarian, and someone in the presidency as an advisor. What is the government's position? Because we can't continue to go round and round and round, dodging the issues. We need localized vaccine manufacturing. If the government needs partners, my company is there to want to partner. How do we go about it? What's the central bank there going to do to help us fund? It's not cheap, but that is the way we're going to survive. Thank you. Sorry, I had to raise my voice.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Dr. Kosari.
Okay. Thank you both. So let me start with the one on the smallholder farmers who may not have capacity or capability to apply. So on the COVID-19 stimulus package for agriculture, we actually knew the essence of this. And I thank you, sir, for the description you gave. I am very familiar with these people. Also, they are mostly peri-urban, settled around the river basins or the bodies of water around cities and towns. And they basically may be growing vegetables or horticulture generally, growing things like watermelon, onions, and all of that. And they are very, very seasonal. They thrive mostly during the dry season, but they are key to supplying our major food market hubs that are found also around larger cities. If you talk of them, it's in my 12 from the one in Lagos, but if you talk about the one in Abuja here, they take the market and all of that. So what we thought, using these COVID stimulus for agriculture, is to find a way to bring this support to the people rather than them applying. And that was what led to the discussion and the review of the list of 570,000 farmers we received from CBN on the Anchor Borrower Program. But above all, sir, part of the processes we are concluding today is that this has led us, having heard from the private sector players about the cost of data gathering and cleaning and farmer registration and mapping. Federal government, through Federal Ministry of Agriculture, just said, why can't we, during this unusual time, use the Empower Agro Youth? And we have been cleaning since last week. We have received 124,000 Empower Agro. We've trained batch 1, 27,000, and batch B, 71,000. That gave us over 100,000 young people that have undertaken mandatory 2 weeks training by the various institutions on extension, basic agri understanding. So we are now rounding up today by close of business, revalidating if these Empower Agro youths are still at the local government and the wards where they were trained. We have done the math with the help of some private sector players that if these Empower Agro youth who have devices or Android smartphone could just run through the world and register between 2 and 3 of these farmers to their piece of land by day, in 14 days, we will get more than 2 million poorest of the poor or the smallholder, this type of guys that cannot go onto the platform to apply for the license or the agris. And then we can tie them to market, the input suppliers, and we can link them once the profile is tying to a piece of land where you practice your agriculture, even if it's just for these 90 days of wet season or 6 months or 1 year. We should be able to reach you. You should be able to get all of your activities funded and financed. So that is the pathway we are taking. I'm just crossing my fingers. I wish I didn't have to go to the specifics because I'm crossing my finger that this works. I am very confident that Nigeria, the government of Nigeria, has these resources. For the last 4 years of the Empower Agro scheme, we've paid these young people, we've trained them, but they've never really done something very useful. And I understand, because I'm an agri person, they cannot become extension workers by 2 weeks training that we gave them up initial. But sir, for sure, they can gather data for us because they are tech savvy. They've got Android phones. Some of them, from yesterday's validation, we have 12,000 of them that have tablets that were given by the platform of the Empower scheme. So using these people at the world level, and what we have built so far is that under every PM, what we call project manager of the ADP system that World Bank created in the 80s and 90s, every PM, there are 37 PMs in this country, we use the PMs to identify the master trainers, 15,480 of them, And they were the ones that I personally, working with Ministry of Agri, used to train the batch A and batch B 2016, 2018. So just imagine building a family tree with the PM and the 15,000 master trainers and the Empower Agro at the world level. We can easily target these poorest people. Yesterday, we standardized between 1 acre to 5 acres of land. This could be, we can continue to register everybody afterwards, but we need to bring support to these people immediately. This is the mandate from the president. This is the mandate that Federal Ministry of Agriculture is working with. I needed to provide these basic details for you. So, sir, I hope we will keep in touch and that your peri-urban farmers around the river basins and the bodies of water, and I'm sure maybe you're talking also of these same people that are in the cooperatives, the Water Users Association. So we will be able to reach them.
Thank you.
So let me quickly
Thank you very much. Sorry. Thank you. I've run out of time. Thank you very much. We have one more question from. Sorry, we have one more question. Okay, go ahead. Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, sir, on the livestock component. Livestock, I think also under this COVID-19, we have, I think, 12 crop-related commodities and 3 livestock-related commodities, beef, aquaculture, and poultry, including egg and meat. We are working on that. But let me speak quickly to your vaccine needs. Yes, vaccine is very important. And we have worked with Popcorn McCarthy to do the business study for VOM, which you refer to. So we are at a point now, this file is at the concession, the agency for concessioning of the public infrastructure. So we are, I think they're down to about 10 or so bidders to make sure that VOM becomes a research institute that produces the seed vaccines and that the commercial vaccine is commercialized, that there's a company that will take it up and trigger it. And I can tell you, sir, VOM has over 30 seed vaccines across all of the livestock in this country. What is lacking is commercialization. And I think we're on the right track. And thank you for bringing that up. I'm going to follow up immediately with Federal Ministry of Agriculture and the concessioning. And I have the DG's number. Where is this file of VOM? Who are the final bidders? How can we put out vaccines appropriately? Because if you look at today, the number of fake vaccines in the market, some of them labeled European origin are actually packaged here. I saw this when I followed that study by Popcorn McCarthy. So I think we are right on track. But thank you for flagging this up. It's a very key thing, and that livestock also is not neglected in the plan. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Sorry, we're running out of time. We have one more question from Architect Kabil, President of All Farmers Association, and then we'll let Mr. Adebisi finish it up and respond. Architect Kabil, are you with me? Are you there? Okay, I think we lost him. Mr. Adebisi? Mr. Adebisi,
thank you very much.
Okay.
Yes, I'm here. I just wanted to quickly respond to somebody's on the air. Somebody's on the line.
You can go ahead, please. Go ahead, please.
Okay. Somebody spoke about the challenge of smallholder farmers in the country, and then that of livestock. I just want to quickly add that with respect to smallholder farmers, it doesn't really matter whether wherever their location might be or whatever commodity they are rearing or planting. It's comfortably fitting under our anchor borrower scheme. So long as they are situated together, same congruent location, breeding the same thing. I assure you that once you link up with the state office of the Central Bank of Nigeria and they bring you under the anchor borrower scheme, will not only finance the land preparation, the sourcing of the feeds, of the seeds, plus all the other inputs you might require. But in most cases, we also ensure you link the smallholder farmers together with the off-taker, who's going to off-take the produce at a predetermined or agreed price. That is, the whole entire value chain is going to be streamlined. So please take advantage of it and get across to the Central Bank of the of Nigeria, in whatever location you are. And secondly, I mentioned about the livestock. Yes, the central bank is actually dealing with livestock, including poultry, dairy, and ranching in several parts of the country. And anybody who is interested in financing any of these schemes should please take advantage of it. Well, Pamosi is working with us in Ekiti, flour mills in some other parts of the country, and all like that. That's for dairy. And of course, cattle ranches also. So please, wherever you might be located, in whatever part of the country, especially for the young men and women who are smallholder farmers, not only do we strive to encourage, what we are actually trying to do is to make agri as a business. So what we're talking about and what we're preaching is agribusiness. So to a very large extent, we encourage such young people by giving them all they might require by way of finance, by way of capacity building, and by way of any other support from the central bank. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think Kabir is back. Are you with us? Okay. On mute. Mr. Kabir, are you with us? Okay. So we're just going to wrap it up. We're past time. Thank you so much. Hello? Hello? So we can hardly hear you. The service is really bad. Hello? Architect Kabir. Hello? Architect Kabir, we're so sorry. We can't hear you at all. It's really bad.
Cut it off.
Okay. So thank you very much for joining us. We're out of time. Thank you, the public sector people, Dr. Kwazari, thank you so much. Mr. Davisi, thank you. Dr. Gideon, thank you so much. And I also think this is an opportunity for the private sector people like Afi and Ada to engage with you so that we're not working in silos. Thank you so much, Ada and Afi. Thank you so much for being here. And hopefully we're gonna have another session and make this a continuous thing. Thank you very much for joining us, everybody, the guests. I hope we're able to if you have any questions, please just email it to us at NABG. I will let you know. Thank you.
Yeah. Participants?
The participants are asking if they can get the recording as well as key points.
Yes, you can actually.
Details to follow up. Can we also get contact details to follow up on some of the raised issues?
Yeah, so you can just send an email to NABG. Tokwe, are you there? Tokwe?
I am. Yes, I am.
An NABG email address. So you can send a message to NABG and they will get ahead.
Okay. It's N dot.
You can also put it on the group
Agribusiness
chat as well.
Okay, I'll just put it on the group chat quickly before we log out.
So thank you, everyone. Thank you for.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
I wanted to say something before, but at the end of this webinar meeting, I think it's better for the commission, instead of sending email to NABG, just send it to all the participants, and that will be able to follow up for every other person to do the same thing.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and we'll let you know. We'll send emails out for the next participant. Thank you. For the next webinar, sorry. Thank you.
Thank you.